Welcome to the Explainer. We're skipping the usual intro stuff today because, well, we've got a deadly, real-time medical mystery unfolding right now in the spring of 2026. We are looking at a pathogen that has been making global headlines, sparking panic, and prompting border alerts. But today, we're cutting through all that noise. We're going to look strictly at the facts, the data, and the science to give you the ultimate fact-over-fear survival guide to the Hanta virus. Okay, so just look at how fast this played out. On April 1st, a cruise ship called the MV Hondias leaves Ushuaia, Argentina. Just 10 days later, a passenger tragically dies. And guys, it didn't stop there. By late April and early May, a second death occurred in Johannesburg, South Africa, and a third death happened on board the ship itself. Then, on May 6th, the alarm bells really started ringing when a passenger who had already left the ship tested positive in Zurich, Switzerland for the Andes virus. This was a rapid cross-border outbreak that left 3 dead and triggered a massive global health alert. Section 1. What exactly is Hanta virus? Let's unmask the pathogen behind all these headlines. So, is this the next COVID pandemic? I mean, you see the sudden outbreaks, borders crossing, international flights, severe respiratory failure. Naturally, people see this and wonder if we're headed for another global lockdown. It's a completely understandable fear when you look at that raw timeline of events. Well, to answer that, let's bring in the experts. Professor Søren Riis Paludan over at Aarhus University in Denmark says, absolutely not. This is not the next COVID. And why is that? Because, broadly speaking, you actually have to physically touch an infected person or touch something highly contaminated to get it. It just doesn't spread efficiently through the air from person to person like a pandemic-level virus would. To really grasp why it's not the next pandemic, we gotta look at its biology. Hantavirus is primarily carried by rodents, mice, rats, voles. It's got this segmented single-stranded RNA genome. But here is the kicker. It's wrapped in a super fragile lipid, or fatty envelope. That fatty envelope is literally its Achilles heel. It's a massive structural vulnerability, and we are absolutely going to exploit that weakness later on when we talk about defense. So if it's not floating around in the breeze, how do you catch it? Basically, you have to enter a rodent's turf. You get it by inhaling aerosolized rodent urine, droppings, or saliva, usually when you're kicking up dust in a dirty shed. You can also get it from direct contact with nests or, yikes, a rodent bite. But hold on, check out that last point. The Andes virus variant, which happens to be the exact one from that cruise ship we talked about, is a very rare exception. It actually can spread person to person through close contact, which is exactly why the World Health Organization was on such high alert. Moving on to Section 2, Hantavirus versus the seasonal flu. Let's spot the subtle but totally life-saving differences. All right, according to global health authorities, the absolute key difference here is how it starts. The seasonal flu, you get a runny nose, sneezing, a sore throat. But Hantavirus? There is a total, noticeable absence of a runny nose or sneezing when it kicks off. Instead, bam, you're hit with a sudden fever, severe muscle aches, especially in those big muscle groups like your thighs, hips, and back, and often some early nausea. If you've been cleaning out a dusty barn and suddenly spike a fever and body aches without a single sneeze, that is a massive red flag. And here's where you have to be incredibly careful, because this virus has a seriously terrifying trick up its sleeve. Doctors call it the false remission. You might actually go through a temporary phase where you think you're beating it. The fever breaks, the aches kind of fade, and you think, oh, I'm just getting over a bug. But then almost immediately, there's a sudden, violent deterioration. The lungs rapidly fill with fluid, causing severe shortness of breath and extreme fatigue. It is a full-blown medical emergency. Which brings us to Section 3, the 2 syndromes explained, because, as it turns out, geography totally dictates the danger. Depending on where you live in the world, the threat looks completely different. In the Americas, North and South, we see hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, or HPS. These are what we call New World variants like Sinombre and Andes, and they go straight for your lungs. But if you're in Europe, Asia, or Africa, you're mostly dealing with hemorrhagic fever with renal syndrome, or HFRS. These Old World variants, like Hantayan, Pumala, and Sol, target the kidneys instead. And those can range from just a mild fever all the way to severe acute kidney failure. Now, why are the lung-targeting variants in the Americas so terrifying? 30 to 60%. That staggeringly high number is the fatality rate for the cardiopulmonary phase of HPS in the Americas. If the virus reaches the point where fluid fills the lungs, up to 60% of patients won't survive. It turns any exposure into an immediate life or death situation requiring intensive care. On the flip side, those Eurasian kidney-targeting variants are generally way less deadly. Variants like Pumala or Sol have a fatality rate of under 1%. But do not let your guard down, because variants like Hantan and Dobrava carry a 5 to 15% mortality rate. And a 15% chance of death is still incredibly serious, right? Surviving it often means you're looking at extensive hospital care, including dialysis. All right, Section 4, Prevention and Safe Cleaning. Let's get into the tactical guide to biological defense. If you take absolutely nothing else away from today's explainer, please let it be this: the danger zone and what you never do. Do not use a broom to sweep up droppings. Do not use a vacuum cleaner on nests. And definitely do not use high-pressure water sprayers. I know it feels so natural to see a mess and just grab the vacuum or a broom, but in this very specific scenario, that instinct can literally be fatal. Why? Because sweeping and vacuuming generate highly infectious aerosols. That mechanical agitation just kicks up all this invisible infected dust. So by trying to clean up, you are actively turning a dirty floor into an airborne biohazard, launching the virus directly into the air you are breathing. No thank you. Instead, you've got to follow this tactical CDC cleaning protocol. Step 1. Cross-ventilate the space for at least 30 minutes before you even think about starting. Let the fresh air clear out any existing aerosols. Step 2. Get your rubber or latex gloves on and soak everything, the droppings, the urine, the nests, in a 10% bleach solution. Step 3. Wipe it all up while it's wet with paper towels. Never let it get dry and dusty. And Step 4. Double bag that waste securely before you dispose of it. Now remember that fragile lipid envelope we talked about earlier? This is where it becomes your biggest advantage. Because it has that fatty shell, it's actually incredibly vulnerable. Ordinary ultraviolet rays from the sun, or just a cheap, everyday household bleach solution, completely annihilate the virus on contact by dissolving that fat. You really don't need $1 million hazmat suit for this. You just need patience, good ventilation, and some bleach. Which brings us to the end of our explainer. But I want to leave you with a thought about your own home, knowing that this virus absolutely thrives in dark, undisturbed, enclosed spaces shared with rodents. Are your sheds, your garages, your basements properly ventilated? Before you enthusiastically grab a broom to tackle that dusty attic or abandoned cabin this weekend, I really urge you to think twice. Remember the lipid envelope, open those windows, and reach for the bleach instead. Stay safe, stay informed, and we'll catch you next time.